Olaram bal jate vartor narvore. In Mandoa, in English, welcome and good morning, my brothers and sisters. My name is Udesla Jorir. I am the co-founder of the Way of The Mandalore Religious Movement. We are a registered domestic nonprofit in the state of Ohio and a 501c3 private charity. As always, before we begin, we need to make it clear that this video and other social media posts are for religious educational purposes only. No one involved in the social media pages or multimedia messages are lawyers, and nothing in this or any other message or social media post is to be taken as legal advice. Disclaimer ends. We welcome you once again to the Way of the Mandalore Religious Movement. If you are so inclined, please consider donating to the Patreon so we can continue to produce these multimedia messages and spread the way to those who are willing to hear it. Also, if you could, give us a like and a follow here and on our various social media pages. This QR code should take you to all of them all in one place on the link tree. We are on Facebook, on MeWe, on Twitter, and on Instagram. If it doesn't work for you, as usual, the links will be in the description. In our last sermon message, we addressed again the way Mandalorians should treat other people with the seventh tenet, judge others by their actions only. In this video, we're going to be circling back a bit and continuing a Mandalorian's personal responsibilities. Tenet 8, be self-sufficient. A Mandalorian must, to the best of their individual ability, strive to be as self-sufficient as possible. Now let's get this out of the way before we move on to anything else, and before anyone gets the wrong idea about what this tenet means. This doesn't mean you have to abandon your job and move your family out to a rural area and become a homesteader and farm all your own food and wear only homespun clothing and have solar panels and windmills only powering your home. That's an extreme. And if you can do it and it works for you and your family, more power to you. But that's not the point of this tenet. To be self-sufficient means to be actively seeking out ways to provide for yourself, your family, and your future. At the simplest level, this can be striving to be employed in the best way that you can in your current circumstances to a degree that you do not require others to provide for your daily needs. This is not meant to say that you have to be a doomsday prepper with thousands of dollars worth of survival supplies and gear. Nor does it mean you have to be at a specific income level. Being 100% entirely self-sufficient isn't always possible. Again, that's not the point here. Depending on your circumstances and your environment, no one within the way is going to look down on you for the challenges you face due to your economic circumstances. And this goes back to Tenet 7. We do not judge anyone on anything related to their income. You will not be considered any less a Mandalorian if you are not able to be completely self-reliant. As an example, in an urban environment, it's not easy to go foraging for wild edibles or to tend livestock or grow a large garden or store years worth of goods or build a bunker or anything on that level. We understand this.
Well, hello.
Now, we've covered this before, but we're going to continue to hammer it until it hits home to people who don't understand. To the best of their individual ability. But just like with Tenet 6, we must be honest with ourselves as to whether we are doing the best we can, in this case, to provide for ourselves and our families. To be your own safety net and not trust that anyone else is going to come and save you. There exists an adage that we are only 9 meals away from chaos, meaning that the average American household only has enough substantial food to last them about 3 days. As Mandalorians, we must strive to be better than that in the best and most practical ways that we can. A large part of this tenet is making sure that you and your household are prepared in the event that regular supply chains are interrupted. We all saw this in the past few years, with lockdowns and shortages, and that should have made us all more aware of how fragile this system can be. And being as self-sufficient as we can will help us weather such disruptions much more easily. Now, this can take many forms, and what works for you might not work for someone else. This can mean simply buying a few extra cheap cans or packets at the store every week, or buying water and survival food, MREs, things like that. Or even going so far as to set up a rain catchment system and raise chickens and rabbits and have a home garden, and all of the possible levels in between. All of those are valid methods for keeping this tenet. Another part of this tenet involves being prepared for emergencies. It means having an emergency supply of food, water, medical supplies, etc., in case of a natural disaster or other unexpected event that could disrupt your daily life. Ideally, have them prepared and set aside in a way that you can pick up and go in the event of an immediate emergency. But there's more to it than just food resupply and storage. This tenet is not just about mere survival on a primal level. There are plenty of other skills that are a part of it as well. How trained are you in first aid? Do you think nothing of throwing away a broken item and just buying a new one? Or do you see if it can be fixed? Do you have an emergency kit for your vehicle, and do you know how to use it? These are just a few more examples of ways that we can keep this tenet and be more self-sufficient. By continuing to learn these new skills and taking small steps towards greater self-reliance, we increase not just our chances of survival, but we can improve our overall quality of life. As stated in the last video, a Mandalorian must accept neither credit nor blame for that which they did not accomplish. This tenet emphasizes the importance of taking responsibility for your actions and not relying on others to shoulder the blame. Being self-sufficient ultimately means taking ownership of one's life, actions, and circumstances. Now that we've discussed what this tenet means, let's shift focus a bit to the ways that this has already been misinterpreted. As previously stated, this does not mean you have to amass large food stores or become an expert on survivalism. Everyone's individual situation is different, and indeed those situations can change, and we should be as prepared as possible for those changes. Nor does this tenet mean you have to be wealthy, financially comfortable, or even employed to keep this tenet and be a Mandalorian. It is well understood that unemployment is a very real problem that most of us will be affected by in some way in our lifetime. And the honest effort that you put into finding new employment would definitely qualify you as keeping this tenet to the best of your ability. It also doesn't mean that you should work yourself to utter exhaustion with overtime and side hustles. Remember that self-care is important, and working too much can take away from other important aspects of your life. Additionally, being self-sufficient does not mean that you have to reject the help of others if you need it. The Way teaches Mandalorians to support one another and to accept help when we need it. There is no shame or weakness in accepting help from others in such times, and Mandalorians should not behave in such a way to make anyone feel ashamed or somehow lesser for accepting help during difficult times. Anything offered as a gift should be accepted in the spirit in which it is given. That said, we Mandalorians practice a system that is perhaps best described as pay it back or pay it forward. This means quite simply that we should do whatever we can to pay back the person or people who helped us when we needed it. But if that's not possible for whatever reason, then we should pay it forward to someone else in need when we are able to do so. That is not to say that we should expect repayment or even bring up the situation later on. We help if we are able to help because it is the right thing to do. for the simple sake of helping, not because we expect anything in return. And the same goes for when we pay it back or pay it forward. And there are some people who see those of us who seek to practice self-reliance as aloof, detached, or even isolated from others. That's simply not true, and we'll expand more on that in the next few videos, as this, like most of the tenets, are interrelated and intertwined. In closing, let's again make it clear that we Mandalorians are individuals who are voluntarily taking part in something larger than ourselves. The fact that we are individuals is not something to be downplayed. We are not a collective or a commune sacrificing ourselves for any greater good. And that's at the core of the 8th tenet. Just as our armor and our weapons are unique to each individual, so also are we unique individuals. And we should strive to do our best to live our individual lives in such a way as to not become overly dependent on any system outside of ourselves. And when we do need help, let us remember to not only accept it without shame, but to pay it back or pay it forward to the best of our individual abilities. We never know where our journeys through life will take us, and it may very well be that being self-sufficient could save our life and the lives of those we care about. And with that, we close out this message on the 8th tenet of the Way of the Mandalore, be self-sufficient. We hope that you learned a little more about us and what we believe. Our next video will be covering the 9th tenet, keep some aside for foundlings, where we will discuss a Mandalorian's obligations and responsibilities towards those who are most vulnerable. Until next time, Vore, Vorentie, Manduade, Balkuyir, Marutia, Kibikruni. Thank you, brothers and sisters, and be safe. This is the way.
So, Jack, what are you drinking?